Good evening, everyone, and welcome to BlueEdgeRadio. I'm your host, Renee Martin, and broadcasting from Sacramento, California. On this, today's April 21st, I believe. And tonight's show, we're going to do a little recap from last week's show when we had Terry Daniel on, author of Swan in Heaven. And our show was touched a little bit short last week. Terry had a little bit of an emergency, so she's back tonight and going to be with us for the hour. And we're just going to recap on last week's show and take callers. If anybody wants to call in and ask Terry any questions, the caller number is 347-215-6437. Hey, Terry, welcome back.
Hi, thank you. It's good to be back, and I have to give everybody a report. My dog is fine. She choked on a bone. I grabbed her and ran over to my neighbor's house. She didn't really choke on it. It was this weird, round, circular bone, a marrow bone, and it actually got stuck on her bottom jaw because she has like a pointy face, and it was wrapped around her teeth and her jaw, and I couldn't get it off. So I ran over to my neighbor's, and he was able to get it off, and all is fine. So thank you for tolerating that little bit of drama that happened last week.
Oh, I'm just glad that she was okay because I was a little bit worried there. And those bones are kind of big. You know, they're not small. Those little round ones, the ones that have the little meaty things in the middle or that's hollow in the middle?
That's what it is. It's a marrow bone, yeah.
Yeah, those they're not. And what kind of dog do you have?
I don't know. She's supposedly a mix of a corgi, lab, cattle dog, and maybe a little chihuahua. She's about 20 pounds, cute as can be, puppy, totally annoying and adorable, and I love her to death.
How cute. The little dogs are so cute. I was raised with
yeah. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was raised with the little dogs. Growing up, everyone had poodles. They're always the little dogs, and every once in a while, I had a family member. Actually, we had two bigger dogs, but for the most part, just the little ones.
Well, this is my first little dog. I've always had big ones, so this is a real shock for me to have a little dog with a little yappy bark. But I'm getting older, and I guess old ladies have little dogs.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs or cats, right?
It seems like it's either dogs or cats. Yeah. So tonight, it looks like my switchboard's kind of acting up a little bit tonight. I lost my switchboard, which I thought, well, if I lose the switchboard, we probably will get lost in the call. So if that does happen during the show, then we'll just call right back in and be back on track. But so last week we were basically just kind of discussing talking a little bit about you and what you do and about your son, and of course Danny's dialogue is a good topic, and we can talk about that too. I know a lot of listeners are interested in that, in the Danny's dialogue. And what is your for people to find you? You have a couple of websites. What are your website addresses?
Well, my primary website is I would say afterlifeawareness.com. And from there you can get to the website for my book, A Swan in Heaven, and that website is swaninheaven.com. But afterlifeawareness.com will bring you to a lot of information about what I do, my workshops, my new book coming out in September, and a lot of other things. I call myself an afterlife awareness educator. For lack of a better word, I mean, when I started channeling my son after he died and getting incredible amounts of information about the process of dying and what happens during the dying process and where we go afterwards, it just led me into a whole new aspect of my life and the work that I'm doing. And now I am a hospice worker. I work with the dying and their families and the bereaved, people who've lost someone, to give them a different perspective on death and dying. And that is apparently what I came to Earth to do. And, when I look at my son's death, I've always looked at it this way, that it wasn't some random tragedy. It was a soul contract agreement that we had so that we could do this work and do this teaching with people, for people, how else would you be able to teach this if you hadn't experienced it? There's a very famous man. His name is Mark Ireland. His father was a very famous psychic named Richard Ireland. And Mark's son also died in a tragic accident. And I'm reading his book right now. He's actually a friend of mine. I'm finally getting around to reading his book. And he realizes through the course of processing his son's death that this happened so that he could go out into the world and do this work. I mean, it's a perfect example of how soul contracts actually work. And this is what I try to teach people who are grieving a death, is let us look at what we can do with this, because this was not random. Everything happens for a reason.
My aunt passed away actually a year ago this year, and I hadn't really gotten that far in my spiritual development to fully understand the concept of, what you're talking about right now. I mean, I'd heard about it, I've read about it, but it didn't really actually, sink in to a degree where I fully understood what these people were saying. And, but she understood, she got real sick real fast, kind of brain tumor, just like in 1 month she found out she was really sick. She's really, really sick, and then 4 or 5 months later she's gone. And she went through a really tough time, but I had actually came out of the closet, so to speak, about my abilities, because my family, comes from a religious background and they don't understand it. But she did. She understood that, and just talking to her, just being there, holding her hand and talking to her and saying, I understand, and I will understand you if you want to come back, and everyone to just come in and check up on people, whatever. And she grabbed my hand and she squeezed, and she understood, and she never really, did a lot of studying in that, as far as I know. But I would think that what you do it's so beneficial to people even before they go, if they have an understanding about what happens and experiences and.
I work with a lot of bereaved people, especially people who've had a child die, and they're destroyed by this. And hopefully they find their way to me, and I can work with them and say, everything in the universe is interconnected. Nobody operates in a vacuum. Nobody is separate from anybody else, not a thought form, not a life form, not a dog or a rock or a tree. It's all part of this web of life on Earth. And everything that happens, I describe this in my workshops as like looking at a kaleidoscope. I don't know if I said this last week or not, but if you look at a kaleidoscope and the kaleidoscope turns, all the little pieces fall apart and then they restructure in a different form. And that's what happens during life on Earth. And so every event, and that is a change in the weather, buying a new pair of shoes, a car crash, airplane crash, a war, an earthquake in Haiti, your dog choking on a bone, everything moves the kaleidoscope a little bit. And that's the beauty of it, and that's the view from space. When you step back and you stop looking at it just as the view from your little ego and your little life, and, this is my little life, and these are my children, and this is my dog, and these are my shoes, and, everything in my little world has to be perfect and painless. When you get out of that view and you step back and you see that as part of a kaleidoscope, you see it completely differently, and that's what I try to tell a lot of these parents about the death of their children. And I also say that spiritually, anybody who's experienced a really traumatic death in their life has probably on some level, on the soul level, requested a lesson in interdimensional communication, to learn something about working with the other side, to learn something about working with the higher realms, because what's a better way to learn that information than to have somebody in the higher realms that you really want to talk to?